Hey everyone, it's me Holly, welcome back to another video. In today's video I am going to be giving you some advice on how to deal with burnout. Now if you don't know what that is, it's basically when trying your utmost hardest at something for so long where you've gotten to the point where you have literally no motivation and you just feel drained. And it's something that a lot of people in like school experience, because obviously, you know, there's points where you get really stressed over exams and then suddenly you just have no motivation anymore. So I'm going to be talking about how to deal with that. This chair is really like, I don't know what the actual definition is. Shall I get that up? I feel like everyone at some point has experienced it in some way. It doesn't always have to be around school. It can literally be about anything. For example, if you, I don't know, like are into a sport and then you've pushed yourself so hard at it that you don't want to do it anymore for like maybe a week or so. State of physical and emotional exhaustion. Exhaustion. Wait, why can I not say that word?
Exhaustion.
Okay, it just sounds really odd. They've put on here having a long-term stress in your job and then you can get burnt out. And the common signs are feeling tired or drained most of the time, feeling helpless, trapped, and / or defeated. Because it might not be as extreme as what they've just said on there. That might be some different case scenarios. But yeah, so obviously it's coming to the end of the school year now. So you might have to remember this advice for when you are doing exams at school and stuff like that. But I feel like it is useful to give this advice because, I don't know, it's something that everyone probably experiences, but they just don't really get it. Obviously some people do get it, but some people may not understand why they are feeling the way that they do. So that's what I'm here to explain today. Obviously over the summer holidays you might be planning, maybe if you're going into year 11, maybe you've planned to do a little bit of revision. And I'm going to just tell you now, like obviously it's good to revise and obviously do that because that's going to help you a lot. But don't do too much where you get to the point where you physically cannot do anymore. You want to be able to enjoy yourself in the summer holidays because just know that when you go into year 11 it's going to be non-stop. So you need to give yourself a break. Yes, I revised a bit in the summer holidays for year 11. I've kind of forgotten what I did, to be honest, but I would imagine I did do revision because I was quite stressed. But I didn't do too much. I didn't overdo it because maybe I went over some content for example, French. I would have 100% gone over that because if you don't keep up with a language, you're going to forget it. And maybe my teachers gave me some work, but other than that, I tried to just enjoy myself. Let's get into it. That was really odd. That's too polite. How do I even do it? Like, let's get into the video. I don't even remember doing that anymore. Obviously at school it's an environment for learning. You're going to be constantly learning stuff, which in the lessons it's a bearable amount. Maybe it stressed you out a little bit in the lesson, but you can always do the lesson and at the end of it you know there's going to be a point where you're going to leave and go somewhere else. You know that there's going to be an end to it, which I think you can stress yourself out in class as well. I feel like if you try really hard in lesson too often, then you'll get to a point where you literally maybe become the opposite and have to just sit back and physically you're exhausted, as they said in the definition. But a lot of burnout tends to come from when you're trying to do independent work and you're trying to revise for tests and stuff like that. And I feel like exams are a huge reason why loads of people get burnt out, because I think secondary schools make a huge deal, right? Because they make a huge deal over like end of year exams for like year 7, 8s and 9s. Like I get year 10s because obviously you're going into year 11, you need to be on it with exam content, stuff like that. You need to be on it. But with year 7s, I never got it because I remember being in year 7, they're like, your end of years are coming up. Make sure you're revising and everything like that. And like I get the use of the skill of revising, but the whole of it was stressful. The whole school environment is a bit like dramatic, if you get me, because they're like, you've got to do so well, but like when you really think about it, if you didn't do well, you know how to improve. So if you have a teacher that's like, you have to do amazingly, you have to literally exceed my expectations, take what they say with a pinch of salt, because they're saying that to try and get into your mind and get you to do more revision than you would have already been doing. Because if you constantly have this feeling like, oh my god, I'm going to disappoint someone, you're going to try too hard, and that's where burnout tends to come from. Sometimes, you know, you might have someone who has extremely high expectations on you and sometimes you have the high expectations on yourself. But really, high expectations are, it's good to push yourself in that way and have kind of a goal for yourself. I think that's great, but I think you need to be in a mindset with it that if you didn't get that, you're going to be okay with it. Because I know there's been times when I've been like, I need to get this grade, and then if I didn't get it, then I'd put myself down about it. But then really the grade I got was fine, absolutely fine. Like why was I even complaining? I think expectations are good, but you've got to kind of balance it out where you can function normally after not getting what you want, because you're going to get disappointed in life and you just have to accept that, because it's literally bound to happen. And I feel like even if you have a test that didn't go as well, it's literally perfect to learn from. Like, you kind of, I think it's kind of great to have something not go right for you, because you have to try and build your way around that, and ultimately it actually like builds you as a character. Because if everything always goes perfectly for you and you're always doing great and everything like that, then you're gonna maybe even start to not put as much effort in, because you just think that's what's gonna happen every single time. You've got to have a balance where you're like, okay, did really well this time, got to keep that up. Maybe if you had a question that you weren't too good on, improve it. Maybe find ways to improve it. And I think comparing like grades with other people is a huge thing that people do in school. Like, I remember being in class and literally hearing everyone around me, like, I didn't speak to many people in my class, but I would hear everyone around me going like, what did you get? And I do feel like, obviously everyone's curious and that's completely fine. Like, sometimes I find myself thinking, oh, wonder what they got. But I do think it's quite a toxic thing, like a mindset to be in, where you have to like know what everyone else has got and kind of compare yourself to that, because you're not gonna be that person. You're never going to be that person. You need to look at your grade and find ways to improve your grade, not look at other people's and put yourself down about it. Because ultimately, if you're putting yourself in a negative mindset, you're going to struggle to do revision anyway, because you're not feeling good. And it might give you motivation. You might think, oh, I need to try so hard to beat that person next time. But this competitive mindset, although it might help in the short term, in the long term, it's just not healthy. It's like a whole side thing to why people do burn out, because seeing what other people get and feeling like you need to match that makes you put too much effort in, to the point where you get burnt out, you can't do anymore. And I've found, and I'm going to talk about this later, how to deal with it and get around it and to kind of prevent it. I find now I can kind of do some revision, and although there have been times when I've been in quite like a stressed mindset where I'm like, I literally don't know anything, I need to literally revise every single thing, else I'm gonna not do good. And that's on a bad day. That's a bad day, because I know that like I need to give myself breaks, which is something I'm going to talk about later as well. But it's difficult when you're constantly having these thoughts where it's like, I literally know nothing, because how are you meant to relax if you constantly are thinking that? And in that situation, you have to kind of think about, would it benefit you to over revise? Because it simply will not. It will put you in a worse position, I would say, because you're going to end up confusing stuff if you're literally spending hours and hours on something. I mean, here's a situation for you. This is a whole scenario, okay? This is not something that happened to me. This is a scenario in my brain. So, imagine someone had a maths test coming up, and in previous exams they haven't done too well. They kind of want to do better, and they feel like they don't know anything. So they plan, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to literally crank out so much revision. So on Saturday they sit down, start revision, and it's going well. Everything's going good. They've done about an hour at this point, but they don't give themselves a break, okay? They're constantly doing it. They've done a whole, let's say about 5 hours cranking out revision, which I've never done that. Like, that's a lot. I've done it with breaks, but not all at once. That is a lot. But in this situation, it's happening. So yeah, they're cranking out all this revision, and they're like, okay, we'll give myself a little bit of time to relax in the evening, and then I'm going to go to sleep, wake up, revise again. So they go to bed, they're still feeling the overwhelming stress because, constantly having on your mind revision and school and work, things to do, you're not letting yourself relax at all. So you've woken up Sunday morning ready to do more revision, thinking, okay, this is the day, I'm going to literally change everything. You start revising and you simply just have no motivation. You're sitting staring at your computer screen, reading it, thinking, I just don't have a clue, and you're going to stress yourself out. But that's literally burnout. It's where you've done too much to the point where you can't do any more. And that person may even start to confuse content, get things wrong because they've done so much and they've not given themselves a break. That's literally what a situational burnout could be. It could be different in any situation, but it's just where you can't do anything more, but you feel like you need to. And I feel like procrastination as well, that's a big thing that people talk about when it comes to revising. Like, I tried to revise, but I literally kept putting it off, which is something I've done often. Before I give you some advice on how to deal with that, I'm going to just give an example from outside of school, because it doesn't always have to be about school. Summer holidays are coming up and it's literally designed to give you a break, okay? So take it as a break. Please do not do over amounts of revision. Obviously it's good to recap stuff because it is quite a long time of not doing any work. It's good to recap, and I think the key word here is recap. Okay, don't be teaching yourself new stuff. I mean, unless teachers have asked you to, but don't be teaching yourself like a whole textbook worth of stuff. Is that going to be useful? Weigh up the pros and cons. Is that really going to help you? Or would recapping what you've done the year before be more beneficial, because you're going to be keeping that knowledge into your long-term memory and you'll be able to remember it, and then when it comes to doing tests in the future, you're going to have a better shot because you've maintained this in your memory. Flashcards, mind maps, maybe answering questions online, they're the type of quick short activities that you could do, maybe like 5 minutes every other day, or like maybe at the end of the week you could do about like half an hour of revision, and it's a 6-week holiday, so I mean that's not too much and you're still giving yourself time to relax. For me, I'm quite an introverted person, don't really go out too often. Obviously I speak with my friends and stuff like that, and that's just how I like it. That's just what I like to do. However, for me, if I know that I've got literally a full week of non-stop doing something, whether that's social or not, whether that's just, going out and doing something every single day, that is stressful on my brain. I see that week as a terrible week, even if it's got fun things planned, because I'm not having a break, and I'm someone who, I absolutely love a day of just being able to reset my brain, and I feel like that's something a lot of people love to do. I saw a lot of YouTube videos where it's like Sunday reset, and I think I've done one too, but like resetting your brain, it sounds like a weird thing to say and like a very confusing thing to say, but basically in my definition of it, it's just where you kind of let your brain just breathe, I guess, just relax, and just, even if that just consists of watching Netflix the whole day, laying in your bed. I mean, for me, I don't really like staying in my bed too long because, I don't know, I feel like I need to be up, being, like, doing something like tidying. For me, I love, for some reason, to clean. Like, it just makes my brain clean. And a lot of the time throughout a busy week, my whole room gets absolutely messy, like, and that stresses me out. So I need to clean, and that literally cleans my brain. A reset is such a good day for me. Like, it's one of my favorite days in a week, which is really sad. But if I give an example of someone who's extroverted, maybe they enjoy being around people and love to be busy all the time, there still needs to be a point where you have time to yourself, because it's all good always having people with you, but I feel like you've definitely, every single person, no matter who you are, you need, sorry, that's the chair. You need, even if it's not a whole day, maybe if it's like 2 hours, just to be with yourself and just, think about, reflect on the things that you've done, and not constantly be on the go, because your brain's going to get exhausted from that, to always being doing something and always having to think about things, you know, giving yourself time to just not even think at all. Like, obviously we're always thinking, but it's just the whole concept of just having your brain being slower, and like everything being slower around you, and just even like something that I think I'll recommend to a lot of people is to kind of reflect. And for me, it's really hard to write a diary because I forget to do it every single day. But even if it's just like at the end of a week, to just reflect on what you've done. Reflection is such a good thing because, you know, you're kind of letting out your thoughts, and if you've got any negative ones, you're putting them down on paper and you're being able to read it physically, because everything being up here, that's too much. That's too much for your brain if every single thought and feeling is in here, because writing it down, maybe you've had something on your mind the whole week, and being able to write it down, you can kind of just remove it from here. It's still going to be in here, but it's just a metaphor. Removing it from your brain and putting it on a piece of paper, and you can actually just look at it and see it and not have it always up in here. Because weirdly, even if this is for me personally, even if I've been thinking about something all week and I've been trying to like break it down in my own brain, like make myself more, like have better positive thought patterns, even if I've been doing that, still having it up there and not letting it out in a way, like maybe like speaking about it or talking to someone about it or writing it down, not being able to do that, even if I've kind of got a positive thought about it, it still in a way needs to come out somehow. And that is why maybe writing something down, even with like having a passion, and like for me that's playing piano and singing, that is a great way to let out emotions and let out your feelings. Because maybe if you enjoy art, you can draw your emotions, and I feel like that is the best type of hobby, is to be able to let something out. And I feel like every single person has their one thing that can just calm them down. I mean, if you like football, you know, maybe that's your way of letting everything out. Maybe boxing, you can just punch things, and I don't know how boxing really works, but that's going to be good for you if you're letting out that emotion. Reflection, always great. And yeah, so back to burnout, if you've had a week where you're literally mentally exhausted, taking the weight out of your brain and like letting it just relax and just having it on a piece of paper, or, you know, out in the open somehow, it's just going to be a lot better for your brain. Kind of talked about how to deal with it, with like reflection and stuff like that. And another way is to have breaks. Like, breaks are literally the most important thing ever. You know, there's a reason at school why you have, actually my school got rid of breaks. So maybe my school doesn't know the importance of having a break, because we have free lessons and then lunch, but we still have a lunch, so that's still a break. And obviously you need to eat, and that's the reason for it. But it's also to try and stop the constant learning environment and have time to talk with people, be by yourself if that's what you want, read something if that's what you want, just have time for yourself. And apologies, that is the chair. And you know, you've got to integrate that with your revision as well. Add to that is to always add in breaks after you've been revising. So even if you've done, because I know there's I'm always going to say this wrong, Pomodoro. I'm always going to say that word wrong. Pomodoro. That kind of sounds right to me. The Pomodoro timers, where it's like half an hour and then 15 minutes, or 25 minutes and like 10 minutes as a break. Sorry, I made that really unclear. Like half an hour actually doing revision, and then 15 minutes having a break, and then repeating that maybe 3 or 4 times. And I found that was really good for my revision, because if I had planned to do an hour's revision for history, if I did half an hour, then had a 15-minute break, on that break I could go on my phone, listen to music, stuff like that, to kind of take down my emotions from being so like focused. I could kind of just relax and then go back into the focus for another half an hour and then have another break. Obviously summer holidays is coming up, so obviously having breaks where maybe a day where you do like maybe about 2 hours of revision, but breaking that up with maybe even 5-minute breaks after you do a little bit. Or, you know, maybe if you do half an hour, go on a walk somewhere. Breaks are so important for your mental health and your mental well-being, because, you know, you can't always be doing something. And as I said before, it's just great to have a day to yourself and just to relax. And so, for example, if you've had a week of procrastination, you literally, every single day you've woken up and you've had this constant thought, I need to revise, but I can't. Doing that and, you know, having like a timetable where it's like you should be doing maths right now, that's really negative on yourself, because you're thinking, oh my god, I'm literally like wasting so much time. The best thing to do in that situation is to wake up in the morning, try and revise, realize you can't, and that's completely fine. Like, you can't always revise. Realize that you can't do it, and although that might be stressful, look at your revision timetable and think, I'm just going to move these revision stuff onto a different day, or just get rid of them completely. Cross them off and just think, okay, can't do it today. I'm just going to take some time. And what I found actually is, on a day where maybe it started really unproductively, near the end, when I've given myself quite a long period of time of a break, I would start to get really motivated and actually want to revise, which is literally the best thing to want to do, is to want to revise, because in that situation, that you're in a good mindset, you're wanting to do it, and you're going to be remembering more stuff. And I feel like you've got more of a push to kind of get through a lot of content. But yeah, I think if you have started a day really badly, it doesn't mean that the end of the day is going to be the same. Let's just conclude this video, because I've been talking about absolutely nothing for 20 minutes. But yeah, so ultimately, just with burnout, you've got to just take breaks. If this is the one thing that you're going to take away from this video, if you're ever feeling like you're mentally, physically exhausted, that's time for a break. For example, if you were to do an exercise and you've been like really pushing yourself to the limits, and then you come home from the gym or wherever you were doing that exercise and your body aches, what are you going to do? You're going to lay in bed or put your feet up and relax. So why do people feel like they don't need to do that for their brain? Because technically they're kind of similar. You know, if you've been constantly exercising your brain and having things happen and thinking about too much, your brain's going to be exhausted. But no one really thinks about, you know, some people are constantly like, oh no, I can deal with this, I can keep going. But just think about it as like you've got like achy legs. Relax your brain. Have a thought that maybe you should sit down for a little while and relax. And sometimes that's not possible, and I do get that. And you do have things planned and stuff like that. But in that situation, maybe if you find yourself 10 minutes, just whip out any piece of paper and write something. Just anything that you can. Even if it's like a 10-minute break and you literally, that's all you can do. Just try and write something down to get it out of your brain, because that's going to make it a little bit more lighter. A little bit lighter than it was before. But yeah, and also don't push yourself too hard. Have positive expectations, but not too high. And give yourself a break. Anyway, see you guys next time. Bye.